Welcome to PhilosoFree USA, where we uncover the darkest corners of history and human behavior. Today we're diving into the scariest psychological experiments ever conducted. Studies so disturbing, they'll make you question the very nature of humanity. Can humans be cruel enough to scare innocent children or force others to deliver deadly electric shocks? In this dark history documentary, we'll count down the top 5 most chilling experiments that reveal the shadowy side of psychology. Stay with us for the next 30 minutes and prepare to have your soul shaken as we unveil these terrifying truths. Starting at number 5, we have the Monster Study, conducted in 1939 in the University of Iowa. It's called Monster for a reason. It targeted innocent orphan children with unimaginable cruelty. Researcher Wendell Johnson divided 22 orphans into 2 groups. One group received positive feedback on their speech, while the other was constantly told they stuttered, even if they spoke normally. The result? Many children in the negative feedback group developed actual stutters, and some were traumatized for life, suffering from anxiety and self-esteem issues well into adulthood. The study was so unethical that it was hidden for years, only coming to light decades later. What do you think? Is it ever okay to harm children in the name of science? At number 4, we have the Milgram experiment, conducted by Stanley Milgram in the 1960s at Yale University. This experiment aimed to understand how obedient people are to authority, inspired by the atrocities of the Holocaust. Participants were told to play the role of a teacher and administer electric shocks to a learner for wrong answers. The learner was actually an actor, but the teacher believed the shocks were real. Shockingly, 65% of participants delivered what they thought were 450-volt shocks, potentially lethal, just because a scientist in a lab coat told them to. The experiment revealed how ordinary people can commit horrific acts under authority. Would you obey such orders, knowing someone might be hurt? Let's move to number 3. Is the Little Albert experiment, conducted in 1920 by John Watson and Rosalie Rayner at Johns Hopkins University. This experiment involved a 9-month-old baby named Albert. Watson wanted to test if fear could be conditioned, so he introduced Albert to a white rat, which the baby initially liked. But every time Albert touched the rat, Watson struck a metal bar with a hammer, creating a loud noise that terrified the child. After several pairings, Albert became so scared of the rat that he'd cry at the mere sight of it, and his fear generalized to other white objects, like a Santa Claus beard. Tragically, Albert was never deconditioned, and he likely lived with this fear for years. By today's ethical standards, this experiment is unthinkable. Do you think such experiments are ever justified in the name of understanding human behavior? At number 2, we have the Stanford Prison Experiment, conducted in 1971 by Philip Zimbardo at Stanford University. Zimbardo wanted to study the psychological effects of prison life, so he recruited college students and randomly assigned them roles as guards or prisoners in a mock prison set up in a university basement. What happened next was horrifying. Within days, the guards became abusive, denying prisoners sleep, humiliating them, and even forcing them into simulated acts of violence. The prisoners, meanwhile, suffered emotional breakdowns, with some begging to be released. The experiment was supposed to last 14 days but was stopped after just 6 due to the extreme cruelty. Zimbardo himself admitted he got too involved, losing sight of the ethical boundaries. This experiment showed how power and roles can turn ordinary people into monsters. Does power corrupt everyone, or is there a way to resist it? At number 1, we have the Tuskegee syphilis study, one of the most unethical experiments in American history, running from 1932 to 1972. Conducted by the U.S. Public Health Service, this study involved 600 African American men in Alabama, 399 of whom had syphilis. The men were told they were receiving free treatment for bad blood, but in reality, researchers wanted to study the natural progression of the disease. Even when penicillin became a widely available cure in the 1940s, the men were deliberately denied treatment. Over 100 died from syphilis or related complications, and many passed the disease to their wives and children. The study was exposed in 1972, leading to public outrage and major reforms in medical ethics. How could such cruelty go on for 40 years? Let's take a moment for a shocking reveal. Hold on. Did you know the Tuskegee study went on for 40 years and no one tried to stop it? Let's dive deeper into what these experiments reveal about human nature. So what do these experiments tell us about human nature? First, they reveal how far people will go under authority or in the name of science. The Milgram and Stanford experiments show that ordinary people can turn violent when given power or when following orders. Second, the Little Albert and Monster studies highlight how fragile our psychology is, especially in children, and how easily trauma can be inflicted. Finally, the Tuskegee study exposed deep systemic issues, like racism and the abuse of vulnerable populations in medical research. Today, strict ethical guidelines govern psychological research, but the question remains, have we truly learned from these dark chapters? Or could similar experiments still be happening in secret? Philosophically, these studies force us to ask, what does it mean to be human when we're capable of such cruelty? What do you think? These dark chapters of history remind us how dangerous the misuse of psychology can be, but they also teach us the importance of humanity and ethics. Which of these experiments shocked you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. If this documentary shook you to your core, hit that like button, share it with a friend, and subscribe to PhilosoFree USA for more dark history and philosophical deep dives every week. Let's keep exploring the truths that shape our world. See you in the next video.